The Batman that you and I know is a human being. There's very little of supernatural work when it comes to Batman. Usually it's crime, mob bosses, and tech. 1 or 2, 3 technological crimes, but it's more of crime drama, and just that. Batman usually revolves around those areas of when it comes to just Batman movies in general. But this particular Batman movie took a totally different direction. This went supernatural. It went full Constantine. At one point I thought this was a Constantine script that the director thought that it would work very well. The director and the producers thought that it would work very well as a Batman film. Now, this is coming from Sam Liu. It was directed by Sam Liu. It was produced by, I saw a familiar name, Sam Register, who directed one of my favorite animated Batman movie, Batman Under the Red Hood. So I did not know that when I was going in. I saw that after, and I was kind of shocked, because this movie is what's the word? Convoluted. It's constipated. It has so many things going, so many good ideas going, and it feels like they're all jumbled up together. Now, of late, DC has been, over the last few years, DC has been experimenting with different ideas for Batman. We've had a ninja version of Batman. We've had a Batman during the 18th or 17th century. We've had Batman when it comes to Soul of the Dragon, which again was directed by Sam Liu, going to the 70s, meeting characters who felt more like Bruce Lee, felt more like James Bond. My review is here for the movie. So it felt like this was a part of that experiment. This is Batman during the 1930s or 20s, and he is going full supernatural. What I said, it feels like Constantine. There are creatures here from actually hell. It feels like the Batman that we know currently is not that Batman that you see in this film. At the end of the film, he's a totally different, he becomes a Batman. If you watch the movie, you understand what I'm talking about. So, what did I love about this film? First of all, I love the fact that they changed a lot of things. If you watched Batman Begins, there's a character in that film that is also famous for training Batman, and in this movie they don't actually recognize each other. They never worked together. He's a totally different character. The story has been swapped around. It takes a totally different direction, and the daughter also takes a totally different direction, which again, it will remind you of Anakin. Let me just put it that way. Apart from that different take of the character, there is the overhaul bad guy, and it's in the poster, the tentacles. It will remind you of Lovecraft. Let me just put it that way. It will remind you of Lovecraft. I've just given you the hint with the big tentacles and the huge and the eyes. Now, there's a particular character that did something apart from that character that I was talking about. There's Freeze. Yeah, Freeze. I think this is the best origin story so far that I've seen of the character. They've done different iteration. There's no wife involved. What they did with the character was very, very interesting. The direction that they decided to take with the character is very, very interesting. Now, unfortunately, they did not do enough with the character. He was taken out in such a disappointing way. I expected to see more action from him. I expected to see gadgets from him. I expected to see new gadgets from me. I expected them to develop him to be like at least the overarching villain, because that's the second villain that they set up when they were beginning the movie. He was the second after Penguin. He was the second character that Bruce Wayne interacted with when we were starting the film, and I thought that overall he would be the overall bad guy, but something happens at the middle of the film and another villain is introduced, and then there's the other. That's what I was talking about, convoluted. There are just so many things happening at the same time. Now, apart from Freeze, I love the fact that they turned the Batman story, the IP, how we understand it, how we look at it, totally different. Yes, the parents get killed, but there's a story behind the parents that affect the story. There is the concept of the sins of the father. There's the concept of what happened in the past coming to haunt us in the future. There's a different take of Arrow. I think we all know Arrow. There's a very different take of the on the character, the relationship between that father's character and Thomas Wayne and the Penguin. Again, very, very interesting. I loved the idea around that. Now, Copperpot. I think this should have been called Batman: The Hunt for Copperpot. It's the Penguin. it felt that way, it began that way, it ended that way. It was a very interesting ending, it was a very interesting beginning. And Copperbolt was mentioned more than Batman. The name Batman and Bruce Wayne were mentioned in this film. So it goes to show you, that felt really weird. I thought they were going to take it somewhere, but they did not take it anywhere. Now, there are other characters, other things that I liked. There was the Bat family, and they were introduced and they were brought to us not in a way that you're familiar with, not in a way that I'm familiar with. And I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that they were not thrown into the costumes. Let me just put it that way. They were not thrown into action the way we are used to seeing them in action. I love the fact that they were a family and they grounded them. They grounded Bruce Wayne, they kind of grounded the other member of the family. Let me just put it that way. Things happen and I don't want to spoil for anyone. Now, what did not work? First of all, as I said, there were just so many things happening. This did not feel like a Batman movie. It felt like a Constantine movie. The script felt like a Constantine script that was redeveloped and rewritten for Batman. There are some characters there were some things that are straight from Constantine. There are some things that Constantine does that Batman does in this film. And I was like, oh, okay, I see where you're going. But I'll pretend that I did not see that. It doesn't make sense to me, and it actually kind of threw me off. Let me just be honest, because Batman is fighting a person who's 2 times his size, and this creature is on fire. Actually, and it's setting everything on fire. And Batman, a normal human being, is fighting that particular character. So for me, it was kind of, despite the fact that Batman was fighting wisely, this is not a more brawly, let's punch, let's kick each other, let's face each other face to face. No, he was a smarter fighter. He would avoid a lot of hits. He was fighting smartly. But again, when you look at the situation at that particular time, it just didn't make sense. How can Batman face off a supernatural character who's on fire and still make it? You know, for me, I was like, okay, it's first of all, it's animated. I'm cool with it. I'm okay. You know, do what you want to do with the character. Some characters, again, as I said, when I use the word convoluted, there were characters that we're familiar with that were brought in. Actually, let me just mention them. There's Two-Face, there's Poison Ivy. They were brought in, used, and just, you don't feel, yes, they play a very important part in the plot, but you don't quite feel their impact. It's like they just, yes, Harvey Dent plays an interesting role in the film, a very totally different role, almost the kind of Harvey Dent that we know, but he plays a very interesting role. But where the story goes with, you know, what happened to him, where the story goes with that, it's totally different. And I was kind of, I'm not okay with what they did. Let me just put it that way. I'm not okay with what they did. And so the ending, something happens, something big happens, and you're like, okay, I know you're trying out new things. I know it's a part of a comic because this particular movie is based on a comic. But man, oh man, what the hell, man? It could have been done way better. Something happens to Batman, and you're like, I get where you're going, but like, come on, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, you have this thing that's happening, and then something else happens, and that's all that takes place. They introduce things to justify the move, but then you're watching it and you're like, okay, but it's animated, it's from a comic book, it's not supposed to be believable. But man, oh man, let me just say, I'm not happy with some of the decisions that were done in the third act. They didn't make sense to me, and it felt like they did not have an ending. It just felt like they did not have an ending, so they had to throw that in. So yeah, generally speaking, what then is my conclusion? I love the idea of this film. I love what they try to do. I love the fact they did something different. My only biggest problem is that they put in too much. It's like they just crammed too many ideas and too many concepts into a 1 hour 26 minutes film, and I felt like a lot of characters were wasted, a lot of ideas were wasted. I felt like some of the things were not well thought through. Yes, they were perfectly placed. Yes, they were perfectly aligned to serve the overall story, but they just did not make sense. You get it? Just didn't connect the way they thought it was going to connect. So overall, is it an entertaining? Now let's ask ourselves, because it was straight to DVD. It's straight to streaming, straight to DVD. It's not like I don't think it's showing in the cinemas. But the main question, is it an entertaining film? Because on my channel, only one thing matters: the entertainment factor, the entertainment value. Is this film entertaining? Yes, it is, because it takes a totally different direction. But they messed up the ending. Let me just put it that way. They totally messed up the ending, and they had a lot of things going. So it's entertaining for the new take of the character and the raw gallery. It's problematic in terms of just having too many things happening at the same time. So I give this a 3 out of 5. Now, do I suggest you watch it? Yeah, watch it, but don't watch it with your kids, that one, because yeah, it had some really horrific, I would call them horrific sequences, but don't watch this with your kids. Watch this with your teenagers, watch this with your friends. If you love the Batman and you've been a Batman fan for a very long time and you are looking forward to watching something different, but with Batman, this works. If you love Soul of the Dragon, despite the fact that this doesn't have as much action as that particular film, this actually works. This is Batman horror. This is horror. I think the Soul of Dragon was Batman Kung Fu. This is Batman horror. And it's I hope in the future we'll see a Batman sci-fi version of Batman, but this one was almost a miss. Let me just put it that way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and see you on the next one.